Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to episode 5 of our 6-part series, When Empires Fell Apart. Today, we look at the year 1917 and 1918, a time when centuries-old dynasties began to crumble. From the Russian Revolution to the collapse of the Ottomans, the world map was being redrawn in blood. World War I, When Empires Fell Apart. A world history series by The Perfect Professor. Episode 5, Part 1. Cracks that could no longer be hidden. Empires do not collapse suddenly. They crack quietly, until holding them together costs more than letting them fall. War exposed what peace had hidden. Before the war, empires looked strong. Large territories, huge armies, ancient legitimacy. But war stripped away illusion. Stress reveals weakness. And World War I applied constant pressure. Too many people, too many promises. Empires rule diversity through force. Different languages, different religions, different loyalties. As long as order held, so did obedience. War disrupted that balance. The cost of endless sacrifice. As casualties mounted, loyalty thinned. Why die for an empire that offered nothing in return? Soldiers questioned purpose. Civilians questioned authority. Faith in the system eroded. Austro-Hungarian Empire. Unity by exhaustion. Austria-Hungary was a patchwork, held together by tradition, not cohesion. War demanded unity. The empire could not deliver it. National groups resented each other. Command fractured. Morale collapsed unevenly. The empire fought, but without belief. Ottoman Empire. Old power, new reality. The Ottomans were already weakening. War accelerated decay. Supply lines failed. Leadership lagged. Peripheral regions felt abandoned. The empire survived on memory. Memory does not stop collapse. Russian Empire. Strength without stability. Russia had numbers. It lacked resilience. Losses mounted. Food shortages spread. Trust in leadership evaporated. The empire could absorb casualties, but not despair. Why war makes empires fragile? Empires rely on legitimacy, stability, fear. War damages all three. When survival becomes uncertain, obedience becomes optional. The shift from loyalty to survival. People stopped thinking as subjects. They thought as individuals, as communities, as nations. The empire's identity dissolved. Smaller identities rushed in. The quiet start of collapse. There were no grand announcements. Just strikes, desertions, mutinies, shortages. Collapse begins socially, before it becomes political. Professor's reflection. Empires break under weight. World War I did not destroy empires directly. It forced them to reveal weaknesses. They could no longer hide. Once revealed, collapse became inevitable. Episode 5, Part 2, Revolutions, Betrayals, and Broken Thrones. Empires fall when people stop believing they must exist. World War I accelerated that moment, when obedience finally snapped. Years of sacrifice demanded justification. Food was scarce. Wages collapsed. Families starved. Orders still came. Belief did not. Russian Empire. Collapse from within. Russia's front lines broke morale. Its home front broke trust. Strikes spread. Soldiers mutinied. Crowds demanded bread, not speeches. The throne fell not to invasion, but exhaustion. Authority vanished almost overnight. Why revolutions spread faster than armies. Ideas move faster than soldiers. Anger spreads faster than orders. When one empire cracks, others notice. Fear travels. So does hope. Austro-Hungarian Empire. Loyalty turns local. National groups stopped fighting for Vienna. They fought for themselves. Czechs, Slovaks, Hungarians, Croats. Each saw the war as an opportunity to leave. The empire disintegrated while still at war. Ottoman Empire. Betrayal as strategy. The Ottomans faced rebellion. Arab revolts weakened control. Allies promised independence. Promises multiplied faster than victories. The empire fought enemies. And the future. Why thrones could not be defended. Monarchies relied on tradition. War demanded confidence. When leadership failed visibly, legitimacy evaporated. Crowns cannot survive ridicule. The speed of political collapse. What had taken centuries to build, collapsed in months. Because empires depend on belief. And belief had been spent at the front. Borders lose meaning first. Before flags fall, borders blur. Local authorities take over. Armies fragment. Orders are ignored. Power retreats inward. When betrayal feels rational. In collapsing systems, betrayal is survival. People choose. Their families. Their regions. Their futures. The empire becomes abstract. Life does not. Professor's reflection. Authority is fragile. World War I proved that authority survives only as long as it works. Once it fails visibly, it disappears. Empires do not fall heroically. They dissolve. Episode 5, Part 3, Borders Drawn in Blood. When empires collapsed, the world did not become free. It became redrawn. Maps were made far from the ruins. The new borders were not drawn where people lived. They were drawn in distant rooms. By men with maps. And pens. And interests. The people affected were not present. Lines without memory. Languages were split. Communities were divided. Rivals were forced together. History was ignored. Convenience was prioritized. A line on a map replaced centuries of reality. Why speed mattered more than accuracy. The war had exhausted everyone. Leaders wanted closure. Fast solutions felt better than careful ones. So borders were decided quickly. And lived with slowly. New nations, old tensions. Some nations were born overnight. They inherited fragile economies, mixed populations, unresolved grudges. Independence arrived without stability. Celebration masked uncertainty. Minorities became problems overnight. People woke up as minorities, without moving. Their language became foreign. Their loyalty questioned. Their safety uncertain. The war ended. The fear did not. Why borders created future wars? Borders are not neutral. They define power. Poorly drawn borders guarantee conflict. World War I did not end violence. It postponed it. Promises that could not be kept. Leaders promised. Self-determination. Peace. Stability. Reality delivered none completely. The gap between promise and reality bred resentment. Resentment waits. The illusion of finality. Treaties felt permanent. They weren't. They froze conflict instead of resolving it. Frozen conflicts melt, usually violently. The seeds of the next war. Every unfair border carried anger. Every ignored community carried memory. The war had ended militarily, but politically it had only begun. Professor's reflection. Maps have consequences. World War I teaches that borders are not lines. They are decisions. And decisions outlive the people who make them. Episode 5, Part 4. A world without its old masters. When empires disappeared, they did not leave peace behind. They left vacuum. And vacuums never stay empty. Power without legitimacy. The old rulers were gone, but nothing solid replaced them. New governments were weak. Institutions were untested. Authority felt temporary. People obeyed, but without trust. Why stability did not arrive? Stability requires memory. Shared rules. Accepted limits. Predictable systems. The war erased all three. Everything felt provisional. So everyone prepared for collapse. New ideologies fill the space. When old beliefs die, new ones rush in. Nationalism hardened. Revolution promised justice. Extremes felt clearer than moderation. Certainty was comforting, even when dangerous. The rise of anger politics. Anger explained suffering. It gave blame. It offered direction. It promised revenge. Calm voices sounded weak. Radical voices sounded honest. Why democracy struggled? Democracy needs patience. Post-war societies had none. They wanted solutions now. Economic pain fueled impatience. Impatience fuels extremes. Veterans returned to broken worlds. Millions came home, unemployed, traumatized, disillusioned. They were trained for war. Peace had no role for them. Resentment grew quietly. Violence becomes familiar. After years of killing, violence felt normal. Street clashes replaced battlefield ones. Militias formed. Coups were attempted. Peace felt fragile. The illusion of a clean ending. Treaties declared the war over. Reality did not comply. Conflicts continued, just smaller, closer, messier. World War I fragmented violence. Why this moment matters. This was not recovery. It was transition. From imperial order to ideological struggle. The old world had died. The new one was unstable. Professor's reflection. Collapse creates opportunity and danger. When authority disappears, possibilities expand. So do risks. World War I ended empires, but it unleashed forces no one knew how to control. Episode 5, Part 5, The Peace That Failed. Peace arrived with signatures, not with healing. A peace written by the victors. The war ended at a table. The defeated were not invited to negotiate. They were summoned to accept. This was not reconciliation. It was enforcement. Punishment disguised as stability. The treaties promised order. They delivered humiliation. Territories were taken. Armies were restricted. Economies were burdened. Responsibility was assigned collectively. Guilt became national. Why humiliation is never neutral. Humiliation does not end conflict. It stores it. Pride wounded does not disappear. It waits. And waiting breeds resentment. Economic pain as a political weapon. Reparations drained economies. Inflation followed. Unemployment spread. Savings vanished. People did not blame treaties. They blamed leaders who signed them. Legitimacy eroded further. The myth of never again. Leaders promised this war had ended all wars. People wanted to believe it. But belief without fairness collapses. Peace built on punishment is temporary. Why compromise was impossible. The victors feared leniency. Leniency felt like weakness. So they chose severity. History would remember the cost. New states, old insecurities. The new nations born from collapse lacked protection. They were surrounded by rivals, armed by fear. Peace felt like a pause, not an end. When justice feels one-sided. Justice imposed without consent feels like domination. Dominated societies do not forget. They reorganize. They radicalize. They prepare. The quiet preparation for the next war. Armies shrank. Anger grew. Diplomacy hardened. The war was over. The conflict was not. Professor's reflection. Peace requires dignity. World War I teaches a dangerous lesson. Peace without dignity is simply delayed violence. When people feel punished rather than protected, they look for someone to follow. Anyone who promises restoration. Episode 5, Part 6, The End of Empires, the beginning of the next war. World War I ended on paper. In reality, it never truly stopped. The world after empires. The old empires were gone. In their place stood fragile nations, angry populations, unfinished borders. The global order had changed. Stability had not replaced it. Why collapse creates memory. People remembered who lost land, who was humiliated, who was ignored. Memory hardened into identity. Identity hardened into grievance. Grievance waits for opportunity. The dangerous silence of the 1920s. The guns were silent, but the anger was not. Unemployment, inflation, political extremism. These were not accidents. They were consequences. When radical answers sound reasonable, moderate voices promised patience. Radical voices promised restoration. After humiliation, restoration feels powerful. People do not follow extremists because they are evil. They follow them because they offer dignity. World War I's greatest failure. It destroyed empires, but it failed to build peace. The structures that collapsed were not replaced wisely. The future was left unstable. Why World War II was not a surprise. World War II did not come out of nowhere. It came out of resentment, out of broken promises, out of unfinished business. World War I wrote the prologue. The pattern humanity repeats. Punish instead of reconcile. Control instead of heal. Silence instead of understand. These choices create cycles. World War I was one turn of that cycle. The final irony. The war that was meant to end empires ended faith in peace itself. Professor's reflection. Collapse without repair is not progress. World War I taught humanity how to destroy old systems. It failed to teach how to replace them. Collapse isn't the end of history. It is the moment responsibility begins. Closing words for Episode 5. Empires fell. Borders changed. The world moved on. But it did not move forward. What followed was not peace. It was preparation. Before we end, I have a question. Which empire's fall do you think had the biggest impact on today's world? The Russian, the Ottoman, or the Austro-Hungarian? Tell me in the comments. That's all for Episode 5. The old world is gone, and the end of the war is finally in sight. Join me in the next and final episode as we look at the armistice and the peace that changed everything. See you in the series finale. Take care, and see you soon.